Thank you so much, Tegan and Sara, for coming by CFOX today to talk about it's a new record and book.
Yep.
They come out around the same time, right?
Same
at the
week.
End of, same week, right
same
at
week.
the end of September.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a show at the Vogue in early October.
Yep.
For me, what I guess just to get started, maybe before we talk about the show, which has, I think, some unique elements to it compared to other times I've seen Tegan and Sara in concert. But maybe how we've gotten to this live performance you guys are putting together, I guess, it kind of stems from the genesis of the book, the memoir, and then the album, which is, I don't know, you guys can explain it better than I can from what I read in the prep, but it's based on old demos that were like rediscovered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've nailed it.
Okay, so
we're going to go. Yeah, it was really good to see you.
Sometimes the press is accurate, and other times I'm like, hey, and then the band's looking at me like, no, that's not at all how it was.
Yeah, we originally sat down to write a book.
Yeah.
And we weren't going to make a record. We were just going to write a book. And then we got halfway through writing the book, which was about our adolescence and our time in high school, and we discovered all these, like, VHS tapes, like videotapes, and like, just tons of footage, like 20 hours of footage of us. And then we also discovered all these cassette tapes with our first songs. And so,
like, as early as 1995, some of the songs.
And the songs were actually really good. And Sarah and I both agreed, I don't know, maybe we'll try to pick a few of these and record them for a new record. But the more we listened, the more they were written before we were self-conscious about anything, before we had a career. They're our first songs. I think people automatically do I hated the first thing that I ever wrote or did, so I would never put that out. But I think Sarah and I mean, we got signed in high school, so we obviously had talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think. And so yeah, we heard the songs and we thought, geez, when we finish the book, we should sit down and try to make a record out of these. And that's what we did. So the book and the record come out the same week, like you pointed out. And I think that what we wanted to do with the live show, to get to the final part of your question, was to make sure that we did justice to both. We have to go out and promote both, but we didn't want to do a conventional book tour where you just read from the book. I know people like that. I don't mean to say it in a way it's not interesting, but Sarah and I we were inspired to try to take it to the next level and do something really creative and different. Fans tell us all the time that they miss the days where it was just Sarah and I on stage talking to each other and bantering. So we were like, how do we play new music, talk about the new book, and give people the stories and the banter that they want? And that's what we're basically in Vancouver to do right now for a month, is try to make that show, to deliver all those things.
So it's still, I guess, something that's being worked on. Like, you guys are still looking at designs from people and what the stage is going to look like and what the multimedia is going to look like. That's still happening right now.
Yeah, so we are kind of
in pre-production.
Yeah, we're in what we like to call pre-production. We're about to start rehearsals with a musical director. We're going to reimagine a bunch of our old music and classic Tegan and Sara songs, and then we're also going to work on taking the songs from the new album and doing them in a stripped down kind of acoustic way. And then at the same time, simultaneously, we have a director in New York City who has taken our book and has sort of synthesized themes from the book and taken excerpts from different chapters, and we've sort of reimagined the book as almost like a script. And so the show will be us playing these songs, reading from the book, but in sort of more of a theatrical kind of way. Not theatrical, we won't be reading in British accents or something, but it will sort of be less about here's chapter 20 and I read the chapter. It'll be more about telling a story using the text and also songs. And then there'll also be a multimedia part of it. We're going to show video excerpts from high school. Tegan mentioned we found all this footage of ourselves, fooling around in our bedrooms, playing electric guitar, singing, being jerks. One of the other really curious things about the footage, we constantly interview ourselves, our friends, and I've been saying we were like journalists, we were running around the school like newscasters, tell me what it's like to be a teenager, tell me what it's like, to dress weird. And so there's actually some really wonderful nuggets in there too. So the show will be it'll be really personal, and it'll just be Tegan and I on stage, just the two of us.
I would think if you were a teenager in the 90s, so much of this will be relatable then.
Yeah. But also now, because it feels like the 90s are so cool for young people. I've been really obsessed with Billie Eilish, and I'm just there's this kind of this sort of embracing of 90s culture, this idea of sort of the fashion, the music, I hate the word angst. People have been using that a lot with this project, but I recently looked it up because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't like a
Miss Word or something?
Yeah, like I was like, is angst what it was? And it describes angst as being like a state of despair. And I thought to myself, like, that is exactly what I felt in high school. I was in a state of despair. And I sort of love right now that Billie Eilish and a lot of this music and culture that is happening right now in response to the world and climate change and government and this side kind of like unrest and this desire to sort of like have this like, you know, we have to come together as a community and just like rage out, dance, mosh, crowd surf. Like I feel that, and it's been 20 years since the 90s, but I'm like happy to see it back.
To have someone else then go through the book and pick out some themes, was that pretty, I guess, useful, right? Because you guys lived it. You wrote the book. You went through all the tapes, and have someone else to kind of be like, oh, here are the themes we're going to pull out.
Yeah.
That must have been good. Were there some times that they left stuff out that you guys were like, oh, man, that's the part I wanted to share, and maybe this director or an editor was able to be like, no, that's...
I mean, certainly when we were writing the book, some of the things that we wrote about that got edited out, I understood fully why, but there were definitely things that got cut out of the book. We wrote probably almost twice as much as what we put out. So there was definitely some funny stories and some moments that got cut out, but it did make sense. And for the live show, I think we're less attached. I think it's hard to have perspective, and we also do a lot. We decided we wanted to take a year and a half off, and then decided during that year and a half off that we would write a book, and then that turned into a book and a record, and now we're putting both out at the exact same time. Like, we're overachievers, and I think sometimes you just have to let people in to help you accomplish all these things. I'm sort of like giving myself this pep talk right now around this, because I do not have the mental capacity to balance everything that we're doing right now, so I'm just learning how to let go. And I think Sara and I are good teammates in that way. We really do have a true proper partnership. So the director who's come in, he could pretty much script whatever he wants at this point, because I don't have time to even argue it, you know? So it's kind of fun to have someone come in and have an outsider's perspective too, and who's not that close to the story. And his job is really to create, you know, an arc for the show.
The world, so it makes sense when people come to the Vogue in October and they see you guys.
It's like a vibe. And it's kind of like sequencing a record or making a record. It has to tell the story. Even though we don't really listen to records in the conventional way we used to, I think as artists, you still are in charge of putting together a collection and coming up with an arc. And I think the live show, the book, all of these were exercises in creating an interesting arc. So I think having outsiders come in, like we have a musical director and a proper theater director who are involved in. They already are proving to have such vision that I just wouldn't.
We come up from that punk rock, indie rock world too, where we weren't even allowed to like let anyone tune our guitars, or like people would be like, they you suck, you sell out. Now we're just like really thriving in this new.
We're broadening our group of creatives, and I think that we believe in collaboration in a way we never have.
Yeah, and we don't feel like it challenges the integrity of the work, you know, to include other team members and allow people to give us thoughtful feedback doesn't mean that we don't know how to do it ourselves. Like, I think there was always this fear, like, if we don't play all the instruments and we don't, you know, write all the words and we don't create every T-shirt or every design or do everything, that people would be able to challenge whether we were legitimate or not. And maybe that is born of that kind of 1990s sellout punk attitude that we grew up with, but it is such a relief now to have all these really wonderful team members who can like help us build something special for the audience.
Like, we got 9 records, we're good.
Yeah, like come at us.
And you know, I think we just have to feel the weight of the world on our shoulders. You know, as young women, when we got started in this industry, I mean, Neil Young signed us, and that wasn't enough. It was like people were still coming to the table and saying, "All right, we'll prove it." Why did you get signed? Mm-hmm. You know, you win a few Junos. People are like, well, prove. So, okay, so you won some Junos. You put out a few records. Why don't you prove that you're worth all that? You know, there was this sort of, and some of it comes from inside, you know, but I think we hit a point in our career in the last few years where I don't feel like we have to prove anything, and I don't think we have to impress anybody anymore. But I do think we have a responsibility to share the wealth. So, you know, we just made this new record, and we made it with all women. You know, all the technical roles were held by women: the producer, the engineer, the woman who mixed it, the woman who mastered it. Like, these women are all incredible, talented, up and coming in some cases. And I think Sara and I feel part of our desire to be collaborative is to include more people in our process and to share our platform and to share the attention that we get.
And opportunities.
And opportunities.
And then they get a credit on their resume for the next record.
Yes.
And they're going to learn from you guys
to
share on the next record. And you guys did that in Vancouver as well, right?
We did, at the warehouse.
Yeah,
awesome.
The first time we'd made a record in Vancouver since 2004. So it had been a long time since we'd been here.
So you're back.
Yeah, we're back.
So this show sounds like it's maybe quite different than shows that Tegan and Sara have performed in the past. I know, like, seeing you guys in the past back in Victoria, seeing shows, they were a little bit more, I don't know, I don't want to say maybe stripped down, but a little bit more linear in a rock show sense, right? You guys came up there, you had your band, you guys rocked out. You guys always told stories and had funny little jokes and stuff. But when you guys are going to be up on the stage then doing this show, you're going to be playing some of these old songs, and then you said that you're going to play some, classic Tegan and Sara songs throughout your career. How do you select the ones that kind of tell the story or move the story forward? Are there songs that you guys already know are going to be like, oh, this one needs to be in there because it was a pivotal moment?
It's always a battle. I mean, creating a set list, again, it's just like sequencing a record or deciding what to put in a book. It's always a fight, and a good fight. But, I think at this point we have so many records and so many songs, and everyone's got their favorite. Hanging out in Vancouver, every time I leave my house, I run into someone who tells me what their favorite record is or what their favorite song is. So I think Sarah and I are really aware and try to be sensitive to what people want. We're not doing a B-sides and rarities tour here. Like, we definitely we want to entertain.
I mean, there's got to be certain songs that are so crucial to what you guys are trying to tell.
It was a lot easier, at least from my perspective, the story that we're going to be telling on stage. There's so much music from the last 20 years that fits so easily. And that was really special to me. And I don't want to give too much away about the show, but being able to showcase some of these songs that were written.
You don't want to. She doesn't want to give away too much because she doesn't
Tegan
actually know
in the
what
show. Tegan dies in the show.
I was
Spoiler alert, she's dead.
We haven't finished creating the show, so she can't give it away because we don't.
No,
know what it is.
but I just feel like there's been ideas about how it's not just about like creating different versions of these songs. It's about offering a new way for the audience member to experience the music that they already know, that they already love, and that in a lot of cases they've watched us perform as a pop band, as a rock band, as a linear indie rock band who maybe didn't have a lot of production. Maybe they saw us do our sort of like, uber pop fun, dance around on stage tour. I want anyone that comes to see this show who's seen us before to go, that was totally different. It allowed me to experience this material in a fresh way. And that is exciting and thrilling for me, and it also allows us to showcase some of these songs that were written in 1995, 2003, 2017. I mean, I want the body of our catalog to be there, and I want those songs to be next to each other, and I want people to go like, wow, I didn't realize that song was as, profound or as deep, or I thought it was a light pop song, or geez, that song was a real bummer and now it's even worse. It's like I wanted, like I'm crying real tears. Like, I don't know. I like this idea that we can manipulate people with arrangements and the way that we perform the music.
With this new record, right, which is a lot of these demos that you guys found on the tapes and stuff, you obviously put them all out and recorded them. But, were there times where you were listening to a few of the songs and you were maybe hesitant to include it, or you always were pretty confident?
I mean, there were some garbage songs
there
that we were like, bye-bye.
And they're not on the record.
They're not on
I mean, the tapes that we found.
There are some goofing or 50s.
There's a lot of goofball songs.
Well, we recorded everything that we wrote back then, which I guess we do that now too because we do demo everything, but there were almost 40 songs, and you can hear us experimenting in the songs. You can also see the evolution of a song. Like the first single, "I'll Be Back Someday," was actually a song called Johnny, and then it was a song called Johnny My Friend, and then it was a song called Gregory. We didn't even know anyone named Gregory or Johnny. So like when we went in to work on that song, the melody and the hook is really strong and the visual is strong, but we needed to rewrite those lyrics. But it was clear that melody deserved to make it on the record. So, you can sort of see on those tapes the evolution. So we threw away a lot of crap. We edited out a lot of stuff, and we spliced together songs that we felt were valuable, that would work better together. So there was a lot of work that went into making the new record from those old songs. But yeah, some of it was garbagey, some of it was silly, some of it just was nonsensical. We were very obsessed with really strange, random. I mean, there's like songs called like Jesus Comes Quickly and
Christ Comes
Quickly. Sorry. Christ Comes Quickly. How did I forget that?
We never said Jesus.
Smurf Revolution, like weird things that when we were listening, I was like silly teenagery songs.
Yeah, you're a kid. And
but then there were these, songs, like a song that made the record that Sarah wrote, "I Don't Owe You." That I couldn't even. I think it's one of the best songs she's ever written, and of course we cast it off. We were 17. We were like, anyway, I'll write 1,000 more. I don't, but taking it into 2019 and reworking it and recording it for the record, I was just shocked at what a simple and just poignant song. Like, you know, like the lyrics feel far deeper than they should be for that age, you know.
So it's going to be like, I only heard the one song that you guys have put out so far, and it was like, I remember, or even when Britters, you know, said, I was leaving for holiday, and Britters like, oh, Tegan and Sara coming in, you know, okay, cool, I'll listen to the song. And I thought, I don't know why, just because you guys had pivoted to pop more, pop leaning, I was like, oh, okay, sure, I'm going to listen to it. I don't think we're going to play it on CFOX. And then it was like, oh, this is very punk rock, I guess, would probably be the easiest way to
yeah, and I think we
it.
wanted to make the whole record. I mean, that's definitely the most punk rock on, I think, of the record. But we wanted to pay respects and you know, definitely honor the time frame that the music was written in. But we didn't want to make a nostalgia record. Like, it wasn't like we're going to make a '90s garage rock record. Yeah. But I think I think we wanted to make sure that it still had pop in it. Obviously, pop's really influenced Sara and I for a long time, but it's definitely a return to some of the other music that.
It reminded me, like, you know, working back in Victoria in the early 2000s. Like, oh, this is the Tegan and Sara jams we used to play on the radio.
I think Alex Hope, who produced it, she's 25 years old, which is shocking. But she's been working with some of the biggest, you know, stars, right? Like, she just made the new Alanis Morissette record. Like, I don't understand. She's 25. I spent months locked in a room with her, and she's just definitely an old soul and really talented. But it was really fun making this record with her because she didn't know a lot of the music that we were referencing. We spent a lot of time diving into, like, 90s, and it was cool to see her lift things from that era, but use all of her modern tools and her youthfulness to, like, turn it into something really different sounding. And I think that she was a fan of our band, so she also has a really deep understanding of our catalog and different kinds of production we've used. And I think that this record will end up being a fan favorite because if you really liked the pop stuff we did, that's there. But if you really like the more early 2000s Tegan and Sara, that's there too. If you liked the 90s, you'll love this record because it feels there's elements that are very 90s. So. And she did it all, like, within a hoodie with a jewel hanging out of her mouth. I mean, just a really amazing young talent. Like, I think
I love when, you know, like, when they listen back to, like you said, 90s, you guys referencing 90s music and what they, you know, a 25-year-old plucks from that versus what you're like, no, this band was the most important. Like, I don't like that one. I prefer this one, which maybe when we were younger was the secondary act. And, you know, my daughter's 11 and she kind of does a similar thing. And it's like when I'm listening to my old man music, what she gravitates to and doesn't is it's always interesting through that, like, you know, another set of years, and you're just like, okay, this is cool.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think you get stuck in your ways as you get older too, and sometimes it's nice to just have people in the room shaking up. Like Sara and I listen to a lot of electronic music, and I think part of our desire to listen to music that sounds nothing like our own music is to make sure that we're always thinking outside of what we do. And for me, there's just, you know, in the 90s we grew up going to raves, but even now we play festivals all over the world, and my favorite parts of the festivals aren't the rock acts or the alternative acts, it's the electronic acts. It's going into these spaces and dancing with tens of thousands of people, sharing this experience, and it's not necessarily about lyrics, it's just about community and vibe and feeling. And
I love the production too in those shows.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, they're putting on a real show.
It looks crazy in there, right? Like, look, you went to Disneyland, but adult, crazy, weird Disneyland.
Sometimes I want to be like, we want to give up our spot and move some of these random electronic artists up and just go out and dance in the audience with everybody and not even play our set. But anyway, so I just like thinking outside the box when we're making new records. I think it's a privilege of us being around so long and people just trusting us. I think we always put everything that we can into our new records, and I think. Yeah, Alex being 25, just different tools.
Grab different things. Yeah. All right, Tegan and Sara, thank you guys so much for hanging on CFOX today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking forward to a new record, a book, and a show. It's all happening at the end of September, early October. Thanks, Britters.